I'm going to share my screen and we're going to look at the family law software program. We have two versions now of family law software. We have the desktop version, which has not changed much in layout in a while. Excuse me. And we have the cloud version, which we just changed, and you should have gotten an email today about the new beta version. So I'm going to be using that beta version for the training today. I'll flick back and forth if anybody wants to see what it looks like in the other program, but the substance of the program is the same. Just instead of the tabs on the top, we now have the menus all down the left side, and this little menu bar we can either expand or collapse, so you have more screen real estate. Okay, if you have questions, just let me know. I am not going to send a link out to this recording after it's over, but I am going to have it, and I'll see how it comes out before I commit to sending a link. Okay, so let's talk about family law software. Basically, what we're doing in family law software is we're entering data once, and then we're using it for multiple purposes. So many people use family law software for basic child support calculations. And we have created a quick screen, which you will see here. We're in enter data. We're in the child support and maintenance page and the support and maintenance data. There are 3 pages: quick, complete. Oops. See, that's what happens when you try and be so on time and getting everything worked out. I had this opened beforehand, and now, of course, it's closed again. So I'm going to open a different file. So I'm going to go to File Manager. This is all new. And if I go to Sample from today, that was the file I just had up before it failed. Okay, and so this is the Illinois Quick Child Support page. And we have a complete page, and then we have graphs. So the complete page is what you're used to seeing, with all the sections of all the pieces of our child support calculation to do a complete and accurate child support calc. But the quick one is really going to handle most of your cases, unless you have a lot of complicated cases. You just put in the children, filing status, wages, and health insurance, and the maintenance box to be checked here if there's maintenance. Now, we're going to spend most of our time excuse me, in the complete version, because that's where all the fun stuff is. But feel free to use the quick if you are ever working in the quick and you say, oh, I have other things to enter. Like, for example, if you have more than one source of wages, you can add a wage in the complete. You can't do that in the quick. So let's say there's another $25,000 per year that is going, in this case, per year to Blake. So, whoops, it's just changed quickly, per year. Okay, so now we've got our support and maintenance data page. What are we looking for here? Well, let's start at the top of the support calculation. The first 2 buttons, that the maintenance is non-taxable for federal and state purposes. Pretty much at this point, you're going to use that for almost every case, unless you're dealing with a December 31, 2018 order, in which case it will be it could be non-taxable. It could be taxable rather, but almost all of our maintenance and any new maintenance awards will be non-taxable. Then we get to calculation options. And the first one is check to use the calculated maintenance in child support, etc. Now, what that really is it's really two different things. First, are we going to use the calculated maintenance, meaning the guideline amounts for support? If so, then you want to check this box. If you are using maintenance, but not the calculated maintenance, you want to uncheck this box and go down to the section for spousal maintenance to use. And here is that same checkbox. Should we use calculated maintenance? It'll stay unchecked. Then the amount of maintenance is blank. If I check that box, the amount of maintenance will automatically be calculated. If I uncheck it, then it will go blank. If I'm going to use an amount of maintenance other than the calculated guideline amount, I can put it in here. Now the program is going to use that amount of maintenance for child support, maintenance order, and cash flow purposes, but it will still calculate the maintenance amount in the background. It's just not going to use the calculated guideline maintenance. It'll use this. If there's no maintenance in the case, then you're going to put, no number in the amount and uncheck the box for calculated maintenance. So for this sample file, we're going to use the calculated amount. And then let's talk about the other two check boxes. The next one is to include maintenance on the financial affidavit. And of course, in the beginning of a case, you're not going to put the maintenance amount on the financial affidavit if it hasn't been ordered yet or even figured out yet. You may not even have the income numbers yet. So you probably will not check that box, but later on in the case, it may be useful to have it automatically inserted in the financial affidavit. And then the last box here is to extrapolate for incomes above the schedule. So what does that mean? We can go to the little help button here. And this will tell us is that extrapolation is when we're going to continue to calculate additional child support that's off the table. The table only goes up to a certain dollar amount, and that is not in the statute that there's extrapolation. The statute actually says if it's more than the top of the table, then the court has discretion, and we can, in fact, have any amount, except it should not be lower than the top of the table amount than guidelines would be for the top of the table. And of course, we like to have things neat and tidy. And so we would love to have some automatic number, even if it's off the table. So what does that look like? And this help button tells you how we perform the extrapolation. We look at the top of the table, and then we take the difference between the top of the table and the next one, and we make that the incremental amount for each dollar, each $1,000 that gets added to the income. What you will find is if you use this extrapolation amount, it adds a very small amount of support. So be very careful about using that. It is not approved by any court yet. And frankly, in my cases, I would prefer not to use it most of the time, unless I have the high earning person, and then maybe I'll have it as a backup. Now, then we have all the variables for our support calculation. And the support calculation in Illinois is fairly complicated compared to many states. So we have overnights as one of the as one of the calculations, as one of the variables. So here we have 2 children, and you can see that we've put in that Blake, just close that Blake has 120 overnights. So we know that's less than the 146 overnights. So if I went to the guideline worksheet, which is in reports, child support guideline, and I go to that worksheet, now the support amount will end with the calculation at the percentage of overnights. There's no shared parenting. So the basic support obligation is the support obligation. Okay. If we were looking at 146 or more overnights, let's call it 147, and let's make it the same for both kids. And now when I go to the child support guideline worksheet, you'll see that it has automatically put in the percentage of overnights, done the cross multiplication calculation, and our support on the shared obligation is much lower because more of the support is now being carried by the majority time parent, more of the support obligation. You're still dividing the basic obligation for support between the parties, but of course you're increasing it by the 1.5%, at least for now, and allocating according to parenting time with a cross multiplication, and that gives you your result. So a lot of people want to look at various options for support when there is variations on parenting time, and I am going to go through that shortly. Okay, let's talk about if there are other children not of the relationship. My suggestion is that you add the child here. So let's say there is a kid, another kid, Liam, and that kid is Blake's. Okay. Now, if I were to go to the worksheet for children of other relationships, which you can also get to in the deductions section. Go back up here. Here we have no support ordered. What about the financial support actually paid for other children? So if there was a child support order, you would put it in here, and then that would show up in your guideline worksheet. Nope, we got shared parenting now. So let me go back, and I forgot to do something that was very important. See, this program is so many things. Don't worry about it if you make a mistake. I do it all the time. So what I want to say is this third child is not a child of the relationship. And now it's going to take away the parenting time because parenting time is irrelevant. And now we can look at the worksheet for children of other relationships, either here or in the deduction section. So in the deduction section, we have the amount for support ordered for other children. If it's not an ordered support amount, we can go to that worksheet and you'll see that the program has automatically calculated what 75% of basic support would be. However, the deduction is showing up as 0. Why is that? Because the statute says it's 75% or the amount of support actually paid, whichever is less. So if you don't have an actual financial support paid in line 5 here, or in line 2 in the financial support actually paid, it's the same field, then you're not going to have any deduction. So now I've put in an amount, and when I go back to the worksheet, now you can see that there's a deduction. And when I go to the child support worksheet itself, you will see here at line 14 is the adjustment for children of other relationships that reduces Blake's net income here by $998. And so his net income, instead of being $87.53, is $77.55. And that's what's used to come up with the basic support amount for the combined net income. So if I took this out, whoops, I got to put in a zero. Let's put in a zero. It's going to change the amount of basic support. I can always go back when I overwrite here, and it will automatically put the number back in. In the desktop version, when we overwrite, we are actually going to have to click on it, and then a pop-up comes up that allows you to return to the calculated value. Okay, so on our support and maintenance data, we can go back to the children's section, and you can see that we've added another kid. I could add another child for, let's say, for Taylor, and again, make a child not of the relationship. Oh, what do we want this kid's name to be? Janie. And this is Taylor's and not a child of the relationship. So it's not going to impact support. And when I go into the worksheet for children of other relationships, now you can see they each have one. Taylor's child still is a zero deduction because we haven't put in any actual financial support. So what do you say we go back to the financial data here, and in deductions, let's say that Taylor is paying a court order for Jane of $400 a month. And now on our guideline worksheet, if we go back to reports, child support guidelines, the adjustment for children of other relationships is $400 for Taylor and $998 for Blake, because he has a higher income, his amount is higher for the support. Okay, so back to our enter data, support maintenance data. That's how the other children of other relationships works. Now, most of you know this already, but in case you don't, we do have the ability to do a little support calculation. Overnight calculation. If you click on the little picture of the bed in the cloud version, or the calculator in the desktop version, little calendar with a calc on it, that will allow you to put in your schedule. So if there's 2 overnights per week and 2 overnights every 2 weeks, so that's a total of 156 overnights. If it's only 1 overnight per week and 2 every 2 weeks, we're at 104. So whatever the basic schedule, and you can always use our little, I call this the slush fund of overnights. What are the additional overnights per year? You can put that into, if there's another 10 or whatever for holidays and vacations. Just remember, when you're adding the additional overnights, to consider the fact that if Blake gets a week of vacation, some of those overnights he would have had anyway, maybe as many as 3 out of the 7. And if Mom Taylor here gets also a week of vacation, she's going to be taking away some of Dad's overnights. So you got to kind of calculate the net on this. I'm just going to cancel that so we don't change our information. Now, the next section, one other thing, when you are putting in the information, anytime you see this green box with the 3 dots, that's more info. And as you're putting in data, there will be places to put in more info, which is a fine tuning of the information that you're entering. So for example, if we say the parent will claim the child as a dependent, they're going to alternate. We can also say which year the parent starts with. And we can also talk about when child support will run into. Now, this obviously isn't relevant unless you're looking at step downs on support, but for this purpose, or for purposes of completing the not the financial affidavit, the order of withholding and the support order, you can change this. So instead of January 2040, if that's when this child turns 18, well, probably still going to be in school. So maybe we want to say May or June is when child support will end. And then we also can figure out, can put in information about the child continuing to be a tax exemption after age 18. And if that's the case, it can change taxes in those future years. Let's not worry about that now. It really is more of a projections kind of thing, which most of us are not going to be doing. So let's close the section on children, and let's go then to wages. And again, here we're going to have the ability to put more information, to fine tune the information that is being entered. And we also have this little comment bubble. If it's empty, that means there's nothing in there, but we can make that is footnotes. So footnotes are the same throughout the program. You can put anything you want in a footnote. You can say that an entry is estimated. So it puts a little EST next to the number on your printouts. You can also make this a reminder. So if something is a reminder, it will not print as a footnote. And that's basically for internal information. So you might want to say something like double check for a piece of information. If I save that, that is now showing me that there's something in that footnote field, but it's not going to show up as a footnote. The only place I'm going to see that is if I go to reports and I go to more reports. On this page, we're going to have 3 pages, subpages. We have for lawyers, for planners, and graphs. Now, you can use any of the pages, any of the reports. On the lawyer's page, the footnote report is at the bottom. View footnotes. On the planner's page, it happens to be at the top. So if I want to go to view footnotes, I generally will go to reports, more reports for planners, and view footnotes. It's just one less click. And here's my reminder. I can click on the link here, and in the desktop version, it's a hyperlink and it's blue underlined. And I now have that footnote, and I can take out the offending text, uncheck reminder, and bam, now it is a footnote instead of a reminder. So that's a good way to manage your footnotes, is to look at them in the footnotes report. You can edit them if they don't have the information that you want. You can change them from footnotes to reminders when you open them. Okay. Just going to check the questions. All right, I'm going to come back to those questions. We have some in Q&A afterwards. So the question is, does family law software still not calculate a 50-50? Here's the thing about 50-50. 50-50 doesn't actually exist for a couple of reasons. First of all, when we're talking about child support in Illinois, when we're talking about support anyway. We are looking at overnights, right? And there are an odd number of overnights in most years. So unless you're getting a kid up in the middle of the night to switch houses, they're not really 50-50. However, that's not the main reason we don't do a plain 50-50. Number one, it's not in the statute. There's no special provision. Some states do have it, and we do have those 50-50 calculations in those states pursuant to their statutes. Our statute uses net income. Whoever is the majority time parent, there are tax ramifications to that. You have to determine a majority time parent. It doesn't have to be 183, 182, as long as you have a majority time parent, because there are tax consequences, not the tax dependent exemption, but other tax consequences to the majority time parent, and that can impact net income. So when you do change this to 182.5, it's, whoops, I put 182.5. It could impact the majority time parent, and you want to watch out for that. So if you really want to do 182.5, you can, but we're going to round anyway, number one. And number two, the majority time parent is an important feature for tax purposes. So you can't just take it away. I will be showing you the what if screen, where you can look at the different results for the different parenting times. I'm going to change this back to the 219 or 218 that we had before. And we will not have a click a box and make it 50-50 unless the statute changes to provide that in Illinois, because of the tax consequences and the impact on net income. And just so you know, and those of you who have seen my other CLE presentations on tax impacts, I go through this whole analysis. There is, besides the other tax impacts, if you say it's a 50-50 parenting time, and forget the tax exemption for a minute, and you don't designate a majority time parent, the IRS has a tiebreaker rule that says the higher earning parent becomes the majority time parent. And that can give you tax consequences that are unintended and not in the family's best interest. So beware of using 50-50. It's just too easy to say 50-50. And that is not an appropriate kind of analysis for Illinois child support. So, okay, I'm going to show you, the desktop does show that a child is not a child of the relationship. Here's the desktop version. And if we are in the quick, it doesn't, but if we are in the complete, it does. So you have to be in the complete to do all of the fine tuning of the information. So if you didn't see it, it's because you were in the quick page. Go to the complete page, and there it is. Okay, just hit one other or two other questions. The difference between support ordered and paid and child support actually paid is, that's the wrong terminology. It's child support ordered and paid, or financial support actually paid. So financial support actually paid is not court ordered. Okay. Child support ordered and paid is court ordered. And that's the difference. Okay. Now we were at wages and filing status. Filing status is important because it has tax consequences, and you must be a majority time parent to be head of household. Having the tax exemption does not make you head of household. I get questions about that almost every week. Okay, wage-like income. This is where you're going to put in income that is not wages, meaning a regular periodic payments. There are some elements here like bonuses, commissions, and tips and overtime that would come out on a W-2, but most of these other things would not. You also don't want to use this for income from assets. So if you have income from assets, you go down to that section, and this allows you to either put in this small table, the income from assets. Let me switch over back to the, we're going to switch back to the cloud version, the income from assets. Here's our small version, or we can go down to the actual assets and show the income with them. I'm going to make this a little bit larger account and a little larger income to be able to show something here. This income, if it's attached to an asset, is going to go with whoever is assigned the asset. So what's the percentage of ownership or income of this asset? Where is it going to go? So I can, if I say it's going to go to Taylor, it's going to move that income over to Taylor's side of the support calculation. If I'm going to say it's Blake's, then it's going to move the income over to Blake. If you put this in the interest, dividend, tax-free in this little table here, then when you change the asset, you have to also change where it's applied in the in this table. So I prefer to put the income with the asset. And that goes for businesses too. So if I'm doing business income, I'm going to put in the business, even if it's a proprietorship, sole proprietorship, or an independent contractor business, which is really a sole proprietorship. You're going to put that in here because it's taxed differently. And that way the tax implications will automatically be applied in the program. So then we have deductions. We already talked about the child support ordered and paid, or the financial support actually paid, and what the difference is between those two. We also would put in this section for deductions, mandatory retirement. Mandatory retirement does not mean that the employer requires it. It means, for our purposes for child support in Illinois, that there is not a FICA deduction, that it's mandatory in the sense that it replaces FICA or Social Security taxes. If you look at the pay stub and there is a FICA, or sometimes it's called OASDI, sometimes it's called Social Security, it is going to not be a mandatory retirement, and you do not put it in here. You would put it in as an asset, the retirement account, and then you would put in their contributions with that asset. Maintenance paid on prior relationships, that's fairly self-explanatory. You want to make sure that you note whether they're tax deductible or not. They're going to be deductible unless you check the box to make them not tax deductible. And then, of course, maintenance in the current relationship, if you want to have the program calculate that, would be a deduction from income, net if it's non-taxable, gross if it's taxable, for purposes of support. Then we have the add-on expenses. This is your health insurance, child care, extracurricular, and school expenses, and unreimbursed medical. Now, what is that going to look like for the health expenses? You want to go to the health insurance worksheet, which we had to add when they changed the financial affidavit. So here we go to the worksheet for health insurance. And if you want the software to calculate the children's share, then you would check the box here. If you know the children's premium amount, then you would just put it in here at lines 4, 5, and 6 for health, dental, and optical. The number of children covered by the plan, the program calculates it automatically. But if in fact, let's say mom is still on the insurance and she's not being counted, then we could overwrite this and say it's 5 people in the plan, not 4. So we would go there if we're going to go back to the calculated amounts. So if I were to calculate it, 2/4 would be the calculated amount, or 1/2 of the 230. That gives you the child support amount, the pro rata share. And that's what the program is going to use on the support worksheet for add-ons. For childcare, the program is automatically going to calculate it if you check this as an add-on. And you put in the childcare expense. Let's say it's $2,400 a month. Then, and I click this, it's going to automatically put in the amount on the report for the support worksheet. Sorry, I'm in analysis and I want to be in. So on the child support guideline, now we have the add-ons. So I put in $2,400 a month as the childcare amount. This is coming out at $2,235. Why is that? Because the program automatically calculates the net of the childcare credit. So it's automatically calculating the childcare credit. If you want to see that, you can go to the worksheet and it'll provide the information. Here's the childcare credit worksheet that gives you all of the information about how that was calculated, if you ever have any questions about it. Okay. So now let's go back one more page. Go back to the enter data. And so for childcare and health insurance, the program is going to automatically calculate it if you choose at the same percentages as net income, as their income is to combine net. And that is line 18 on the child support worksheet. However, for extracurricular activities and school expenses and unreimbursed medical and prescription expenses, there's no automatic in statute. So you have to manually enter the amounts here. Many times, of course, we don't include those in the court order as amounts. We include them as percentages, which is fine. I'll talk about that in a minute. So here is our add-on expenses. Remember, add-on expenses are not child support. They're additions to child support. That's why they're called add-ons. So when you're looking at the child support worksheet, the actual child support amount is on line 24. With the add-ons, it goes down to line 36. Okay. Now, we are still going to show you, if you want it, the pre-2017 deductions. Don't worry about that unless you have a pre-July 2017 case for child support. And then we have our results. Now, in the results section, we're going to show you the support amount. We're also going to show you what the support amount with add-ons is. So here's the line 24 without add-ons, and here's with add-ons. We're also going to show you what the old support amount would be. Don't look at it if you don't want to get sick to your stomach. And then we have the maintenance amount. Now, interestingly enough, this will also give you the duration. We have 3 assumptions here. And I'm showing you this because it's kind of hard to find. If you forget, you can always shoot me an email or give me a call and I'll remind you where it is. But these assumptions should all be X'd or checked unless the case is before 2019. So do you want to use the current support guideline amounts? If you want to use the old guidelines, you would uncheck this, and now the program's going to automatically use the old child support guidelines. The other 2, I don't know any reason why we would ever use that, except that use the maintenance guideline amounts that applies when the maintenance is non-taxable. So obviously, if you're doing that, you would uncheck that box. But one thing to know is if you are looking for the non-taxable maintenance guidelines, I'm sorry, if you're looking at, for non-taxable maintenance guidelines, you have to have the current child support amount. So if you're looking for non-taxable maintenance, so I go to the maintenance worksheet, when we have the formula uses net income and the 3325. If I were to go back and change that setting to only use, the old child support guidelines, and now I go to the maintenance worksheet, it's going to switch it to gross and 30/20. So just so you know, that's where that checkbox is. Every once in a while, one of you calls me about that. Okay. Child support to use, again, just like maintenance, if you don't want to use the family law software calculated support amount, you want to use some other support amount, you can uncheck this, like for a mediated or collaborative case, you can put in whatever child support amount they end up agreeing to. If you want the guideline amount, which of course, most of the time we do, you just check the box and it'll also automatically put it in there. Okay. Now, so that's support. If you just are entering data, not to do a support calculation, but to enter the data to be able to complete the financial affidavit or to start working with the data. When I'm doing it, I like to start with assets and liabilities, because the assets and liabilities have income and expense items associated with them. So if I have an investment account that has income, I can just do it all in one place, and then that income will carry through to the income section of my data. If I'm putting in debts and there's a monthly payment, then that carries through to my expenses. And some of those things impact child support and some don't. So I like to start here mainly because it means less work for me. And in family law software, the cool thing about the program is you're only entering data once. Anytime you enter data in a field, it's entered. Everywhere else that field appears, the data will still be there. Watch out for overrides. If in your reports, for example, you override a number that is in a blue field, that's a calculated field. If you override it, it's going to turn red. And anything that draws from this number is going to be wrong if you don't undo those overrides. So the overrides, try and make them temporary, except for there's a couple that you would just keep, but that's, so I like to enter assets and liabilities first. Now, that's actually only partially true, because what I really like to do is have the client enter the data. So I'm going to switch to the desktop program for a moment because it's a little bit different in the new beta version of the online. So if I want to get the client started, I would go to Files and Settings, Open, Save, Send, and I can send the client an email. They can access a file, an FLS file in our web server and enter the data themselves. And then I just download the data. So online client files here is the client entered data. So what I would do is I would register the client, put in their name and email, the other party's name, state will automatically come up with Illinois, unless you're like me, where you're constantly changing the states and I have to check it, and then send an email. So that will send an email to the client with instructions for web data entry. When you do that, you will also get an email confirming that you've sent it. And then that email will tell you that they have the information. Then you'll get a second email when they start working on it. I find it interesting that they've probably been telling me for 2 weeks that they're working on it. And then I get the email saying they've started entering the data, but whatever. And then when they're done, they can check a box to let you know that they're done. And then you can, if you're using the desktop, download the client's file and start using it. So think of it like a Word file. If I send you an MSA, I might still have a copy of it, but if you make changes to it, I'm not going to see those changes. If I make changes to my version, you're not going to see them. So in our new beta version, we have our new file manager, which allows me to look at shared files, which is the ones from the client that the client filled out. And I can lock that file so they can't go in it anymore once I've started looking at the data or downloaded it. Now in the cloud file, in the cloud version, the new one, when you do a new file, this is for starting a new file that you're going to enter data in, or registering a client for them to enter data. And I click on new, and I can either do the new file for myself, or I can do the register client. And that will allow me to send them the email. Okay. This is also very cool because it's going to allow me to search. So I can search by case name. So let's say I want to do sample. I can see all the sample files. I can filter by date. So I can do all. I can filter by date. What are the ones in the last week? I can search. I can just do a global search for sample, and it's going to give me all those files. Or let's say Cliff, that was the other one in here. Now I can enter and find. Oh, maybe I don't have any. And then I can also see all the files in the firm, because if I have the cloud version and my firm, I can have other people creating files too, if you have the firm cloud version. So it also allows you to archive files, which is nice for when you're done with a file, you can archive it. So it's not messing up your list, not keeping your list too full. Okay, so that's client data entry. All right, I'm going to go back to the questions now. Let's go to the chat first. The old guideline amount for child support is only if it's a pre-July 2017 calculation. The only time now you would use it is if you have an old judgment, like maybe it said 28% with annual true-ups and they never did the true-ups, and now, or 28% and he never produced the tax returns. So you got to go back and figure it out. Okay. Let's go to these other questions. How do you calculate commissions that vary month to month? Well, that's really hard, and I suppose you have to guess. But in our program, you can put in, so let's go to income and expense, and let's say I want to do information. Actually, I'm going to go here because I'm more familiar with this. If I want to go to wage-like income and I go to commissions, I can click on this commissions and I get a little calculator button. And in the desktop, it's the little hashtag button that pops up. And here I can put in whatever I want. So maybe I have a year-to-date amount and I can put that in and it would annualize it. I could also put in what I know in the way of commissions and the program will automatically annualize it. So let's say semi-annually, they got $2,500 in commission. It's going to automatically calculate the annual amount. Let's say that, let's clear that. Let's say that year to date, he got 24,598, and now it's automatically annualized that. It may or may not be accurate when you annualize. Of course, that's always a problem. So I'm going to show you the last thing today, which is, I'm going to go into the analysis tab and go to the what if for child support. And what this is, a lot more than just child support, because it also does maintenance. But here you can change any variable and see side by side what the difference is in support. So let's say I go, let me just remove the other scenarios here. Yep. And yep. Okay. So let's label this one 12K bonus. And then I'm going to do another one. And you could be, instead of commissions, it could be, instead of bonus, rather, it could be commissions. But let's say this is 50K bonus. And then I would go down and change the bonus amount to 50,000. And it will automatically then give me the calculation of the new child support amount. Wow, that child support went up a bunch, didn't it? But you can see that the maintenance went up significantly because it's a different kind of calculation for the maintenance. And I can add side-by-side scenarios. I can do the same thing with any variable here. And I can even go into what if for exemptions and say which, close this part, which items do I want to ask what if about? Ask about these things. And then when I go back to my what if, it's going to have the variables that I need. And I can put in, so this is where, in answer to an earlier question, if you were trying to do 182, 183, what would 50-50 look like with the different variables? And you would do that for both children. 3 and 182.5. So I've done that for both children. It automatically calculates the other side of the equation. And now let's change the labels. And I'll go back in and change that bonus too, because we don't want to make it weird. So it's the same for every single thing, but let's change this filing status here. And now our labels, we want to put in 183 mom, 183 dad, 182.5. And this gives me the different support amounts and maintenance amounts that would occur. The maintenance changes, not because the child support changed, but because the tax filing status changed, and it changes your net. You want to label these, because now what you can do that's so cool is you can swap any column for any other column. The first column is always actual. And so I can swap the actual for, let's say, scenario 2. And it's going to literally flip those 2 columns. Now this is the actual, and that is what's going to show on your guideline worksheet. We have the 180, see, and it rounded because it gives you an average number of overnights. But, or I'm sorry, it didn't round that. This is, so it's the 183, and it gives you the support amount there. So your, when you're looking at what do I want to do about overnights, this is one way to look at it. Another way to look at it, is to make sure that you've correctly identified the filing status and that didn't change as you move things around. Yeah, see here, we changed the tax exemption also. So that changed our numbers here. Okay, let's make that blank. Okay, so that is our report. Let's see if there's anything else. Commissions. If no children are involved, yeah, go right to assets and liabilities. I generally start with assets and liabilities unless I'm doing a quick support calculation, either in a conference or in a early in the case for some reason. If there's a support order that was percentage based, it depends. I can't answer that. That's a legal question. If you have to know which law applies. If the support order was percentage based, but the law changed, now we're using income shares. Should we be using income shares or the old model? And that really depends on whether we are under the new or the old for the calculation. Okay, so I am going to stop this now. I'm going to stop the recording.